Hey, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, depending on where you are. I want to thank everybody for joining us for a webinar on building a better cloud and an overview of the Pensando distributed platform service and a little bit about a Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. I appreciate everybody joining us, and I think it'll be informative and helpful for you. Before I start, I just want to extend a special thanks to Vipin Jain, the CTO and co-founder of Pensando Systems, who will be with us today, and Ralph Scherer, the principal systems engineer, who will also be presenting. I want to thank those guys in advance for all the work they've done to put the presentation together. So we're going to talk about a new way of thinking about next generation cloud architectures. And it's more than that, but that's an important component of what this technology brings to our customers. Before we start, though, I'm going to give you a little bit of background and context on the HPE and Pensando relationship. It's very important because this is a partnership unlike any others that we've engaged in my 12 years here in the company. You may be aware that back in October 2019, HPE led a C round of funding, along with JC2 Ventures and Lightspeed Ventures, to raise $145 million for Silicon Valley startup Pensando Systems. Pensando, which means thinking, had been operating in stealth mode for the previous 3 years. The Pensando's distributed platform service was developed by the people on the screen. This is the same team that, while they worked at Cisco for John Chambers, developed technologies like Catalyst, Nexus, UCS, ACI, and other innovations that are still prominent in Cisco's portfolio. It's important to note, this is their $9th billion market launch. And John Chambers is the chairman of the board. He could be the chairman of the board of any organization he wants to be. He's a Silicon Valley legend, industry legend, but he's the chairman of the board of Pensando Systems. I think I can safely say that this is the #1 innovation team in the world. So the partnership was announced in October in New York City, and it was kind of exciting because you had a chance to see two ex-foes, two industry titans, come together to launch a very exciting new and transformative new technology. And I mentioned that HPE helped raise $145 million from Pensando, but we also invested $50 million. Now, that may not seem like a lot of money for a company of our size, but let me put it in context. We have other investment vehicles and programs like Pathfinder, for example, where we invest in typically around C round of funding. We invest in and curate technologies that we think are transformative and next generation, but typically we only invest $3 to $5 million in those companies. So investing $50 million in a company we weren't acquiring was significant. And it is a significant investment, but more importantly, it's a very, very deep partnership. HPE grows in one of three ways. We grow organically, through targeted acquisition, and through partnerships. And I talked a little bit about the partnership here. Our leadership saw a unique opportunity, not just to address a lot of issues that our customers are dealing with, things like the edge. And we all read the data that 75–80% of the data resides at the edge. But what edge are we talking about? There's multiple edges. And Pensando gives us an opportunity to redefine the edge. We also saw an opportunity to deliver hyperscale technology, which is important to our content today. Hyperscale technology is being used by the world's biggest cloud providers and hyperscalers, but deliver that with better performance and significantly better security than our customers can do today. This partnership dovetails perfectly with HPE's edge to cloud, everything as a service strategy. So what do we see in the distributed services platform? Addresses lots of issues for our customers. Aging network topologies. Network topologies haven't fundamentally changed in 15 years. And because of that, any innovations have to be bolt-on technologies, overlay networks, things that create a drag on server performance. So application performance is a big one for our customers, and the sprawl of single-purpose appliances. We believe that by delivering distributed services, advanced networking, telemetry, deep observability, firewall, microsegmentation, and other services, all of the exhaust of an HPE server, we can absolutely improve our customers' application performance, significantly simplify their network, improve resolution time because of the telemetry and always-on deep observability, and improve security posture. So before I turn it over to Vipin Jain, who's going to talk a little bit about the technology, I want to just ask you guys a question, or let you guys know that you can post any questions that you might have during the course of the presentation in the chat, in the Q&A box. We'll discuss as many of these as possible during the course of the meeting. We'll have a healthy Q&A session at the end, but feel free to post any particular topics you want to talk about or questions you might have in the Q&A box as we go along, okay? With that, I'd like to turn it over to Vipin Jain, the CTO and co-founder of Pensando Systems. Vipin?
Thank you, Kevin. I do want to appreciate the opportunity with HPE. It's been a pleasure working with the team. I want to talk about the Pensando distributed platform, services platform itself. My name is Vipin Jain. I'm CTO and co-founder at Pensando Systems. And before we talk about the product and the technology we are building, I want to run through a quick set of challenges that we are solving for cloud service providers. Of course, we are working with enterprise customers and we are working with cloud customers equally, and service providers. So just like, four things that if I want to highlight and say that these are the things we are solving. The first thing that we are solving for cloud service providers is bare metal cloud. So multi-tenant software-defined services for bare metal nodes. And it's very critical that bare metal becomes a first-class citizen in cloud offering to deploy containers, Kubernetes based deployments, or virtualized deployments, or maybe just use a bare metal as a first-class schedulable resource to run maybe high-performance workloads. So in order to get there, a bare metal needs to look pretty much like a VM that gets acquired in the public cloud, and that's where we get in to solve that problem. So how can we make bare metal as a first-class schedulable resource? And that's a challenge that we are definitely solving, whereby the entire bare metal could be given to a tenant, whereas underpinning of the software-defined services can be handled by Pensando technology. The second challenge that we are solving really is to provide always-on line rate network services. And network services is beyond software-defined networking. It includes implementing security groups. It includes defining elastic load balancing, those kind of things. Anything that has to do with network and network services at line rate, always available for the bare metal or for virtualized or container workloads, is something that is something we are definitely solving. The third challenge that we are solving really is the simplification part. And we recognize that the hyperscalers and from cloud architecture, that simplification comes from moving the complexity to the edge, and edge being the server, the edge of the tenant and the server, and simplicity comes from trying to make the network really stable, robust, layer 3 topology. And in order to do that, we believe in the architecture which is going to move all the complexity to the edge on the server itself, and reduce the failure domains, thereby giving a very simple, manageable, scale-out network and network deployment, and pretty much decouple the network design from the services that are needed for the tenants, which are running on the servers. And last but not least, I think CapEx and OpEx is a big cost. We are solving those challenges. There are cooling and power problems in data center. There is utilization and efficiency challenges. As a provider for the infrastructure, you always want to care about if your resources are working best towards your customer, and in other words, also help generate better revenue if those things are used efficiently. So with those challenges is what we are solving actually, and there are customers who are going to take us into deployment soon, production deployments. And And then finally, we bring it all together. So networking, storage, security, telemetry, RDMA, or for that matter, any IO function is brought together as a single unit of deployment. So with that, let me transition into what are we really building, and there are three components to it. I'll walk bottom up. At the bottom, you see something what we call P4 programmable processor. So think of that as a processor that we designed from scratch to do any IO processing function. So it's a processor with its instruction sets and a programming language called P4 to be writing programs on top of to run on this processor that can implement various IO functions. Um, and 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 the compiler and all those things is something we are building. So if you want to really utilize the card as a consumable unit, then certainly that is possible. So the processor goes on the card. There's a picture of the card right there. It's a 25 gig card, but there's also a 100 gig card SKU. All the services that I was going to talk about can be done at the simultaneously turned on at scale, of course. The card goes into an HPE server, and we are going to be available in a variety of HPE SKUs. And so once the card is in server, technically card is enabled with all these services that can be turned on any workloads which is running on top of servers, whether it is bare metal workload or containerized or virtualized workload. Then the final piece of the puzzle really is the manageability aspect of things, wherein how can we provide the APIs from the card as well as from the cluster point of view. So we have built a manageable manageability software that we call it Policy and Services Manager, PSM. And so PSM runs within the VMs in your data center, and it can manage thousands of these servers as a single unit of management. Should that be a need, you are not obligated to use PSM to use our technology, like, for example, the server and the card and the processor. If you choose to integrate at the card level, it is perfectly valid, and you can have gRPC APIs going into the card, which is what the PSM uses southbound to the DSC or distributed services card. So you can consume these services directly at a card level or at the cluster level using PSM. It depends on where you are in your journey with respect to embracing the cloud technologies. This is really a validated architecture with respect to how public cloud like Amazon is using internally. They have come out and publicly talked about their technology, and it's called Nitro. I will talk a little bit about the performance in comparison to that. Having said that, the question really is that, okay, it's great that we have built this nice platform on which we can build multiple services. What are the services that we can avail today, or what are the services that are available or can be done on this platform? So on your right column, you will see sample services that we are looking to implement, and a lot of them are already implemented and available today. Things like security groups like function, stateful firewall, microsegmentation between VMs and between bare metals in the data center, providing software-defined networking, which is custom-defined. There's no hard or fixed function. You can change your topology to have multiple encapsulations and those things. Perfectly fine with that. Providing east-west load balancing. A good example would be how, for example, Kubernetes services are offered. And then, encryption is becoming quite a requirement for a variety of workloads. So encryption and TLS offload services, whereby encryption could be used for storage as well as for in-transit traffic for the network traffic, which is going in between two servers having the DSCs, or from a server that has a DSC to a remote location. And then, storage services like NVMe over Fabric is also supported right on the host. So to a server, it could look like a local disk, but it may be available remotely, thereby allowing people to consolidate all storage and save on the cost of trying to amortize the cost of storage that they have. There's a lot of troubleshooting features. I will let Rolf talk about those things in the use cases. But one of the sample services that we have worked on is to do the tapping services, so you can wiretap any of the traffic at line rate. If you choose to, you can select the traffic, and then you can pick those things. So these are the sample services that we are targeting to do initially, and then transition to pick up on newer and different things. So now, just quickly talking about the card itself. It comes in two form factors. I won't go through every single bullet that you see over there, but the main part I want to say is the one that is highlighted here, which is wire speed change services at scale. Often people assume that these services could be implemented easily in their own environment, and why there is a need for a device like this. And the reason is largely because when you turn on all these functions together at scale is when I think, the power of the platform starts to shine really well, and all the savings and all that starts to come in. So offering all these services simultaneously while offering telemetry and troubleshooting functions that I was describing is a key aspect of this, while consuming the lowest possible power envelope for this, approximately 33 watts for 100 gig of processing for multiple services turned on simultaneously at a huge scale. When I talk about scale, it's in millions of routes and millions of security groups on every single server, and that's really the power of the platform. So with that, I do want to quickly compare us against the best, the best in class. So AWS announced their platform called AWS Nitro. It consists of the hypervisor layer, and it consists of a smart NIC device, which is running alongside the server in every single instance that you rent on AWS. So we did this measurement by acquiring their top line bare metal instance. So it's a bare metal to bare metal comparison. And so as you can see, we are approximately 3 times to 9 times better depending on the use case. A few things we could not measure, for example, jitter and all that. So I will skip those things. But for sure, we come out pretty good on latency numbers because we have a dedicated pipeline to be able to handle most of these functions to be handled in the processor path that I was describing. Well suited for certain applications. If you have latency sensitive applications, then it makes a lot of sense to pay attention to that. Also, the amount of packets per second we could do can increase the amount of revenue that you do per rack, and then provide you the same technology at 1/5 of the silicon cost. As a result, there is power consumption which is less. So with that, I just want to iterate that you can consume this as a card. It's a programmable card. You can own your logic on this device. And you can create your own secret, sauce to be able to deliver the services that caters to your customers the best, as opposed to us having to deliver it. Having said that, we have actually delivered and built a set of services which are ready to go in today's environment, and that could be used as well. So with that, I would like to introduce Rolf, who is principal systems engineer at Pensando Systems. Rolf, please take it away.
Thank you, Vipin. Yeah, so let's quickly focus on, for the rest of the time before the Q&A, about the possible use cases we're actually working on with customers to build their own bare metal cloud as a service, as a starter. So as an overview of what our platform can provide, this describes pretty much what we're building. It's basically connectivity, networking, storage services, and security services in the cloud model. So we're talking about VPCs, we're talking about network address translation, virtual networks, similar to what you consume today if you're hosting services on Amazon or Google or Azure. So all these services for your on-prem environment delivered by a domain-specific card built into your compute nodes. we listed a few more services here as well, and you also can see some of the packets per second and flows and connections per second measurements or features of our card, as Vipin explained before. So if we look at the bare metal as a cloud provider use case, we do have two models that we follow how you can use our solution to build your bare metal use case, either to offer it directly to your customers or to build further services like virtual machines, infrastructure as a service, container as a service, and so on top of that environment. One hand, you can consume the card and you can bring your own controller, especially if you already have environments, if you already are familiar how to enhance your controller, the tool you're currently using. You can adopt our gRPC API, directly talk to the card and provision the services that we built for you directly to the card. So no need in that use case to involve our controller. This is a perfectly valid use case and allows you to integrate your new environment into your existing automated, orchestrated environment. On the other hand, we can also deliver you a turnkey solution, meaning we deliver the card, the services, and we also deliver a centralized way to manage the whole environment in terms of services, connectivity, but we also bring you the full life cycle of the cards, including telemetry data. We collect every single measurement we do on the card, temperature, power consumption, but also packets transmitted, packets lost, what you expect from a network device that's built into a server. So if you use our manager as well, in addition to the card and the services, it is a turnkey solution. And we do have a northbound RESTful API, so you can drive this from an automation, from your existing or new automation tools as well. If you look on the right-hand side, the features we provide, we build up a multi-tenant VXLAN overlay to securely also provide you the connectivity into the bare metal services. This is independent of the state of the server, which is a very, very nice feature. And this is exactly what you're looking for. You can provision and drive the connectivity independently of the state of the server, but also independently of what operating system is installed on the server. This is usually a chicken egg problem when you start to do bare metal provisioning. And with that, we have an out-of-band management way how to drive connectivity into a server and are perfectly capable of driving things from day zero up to provisioning to the connectivity into the operating system, providing physical functions, virtual functions on top to accommodate the requirements you may have. So the end goal that our customers have that we work today is this bare metal cloud. It is about building up a multi-tenant network. We run our own BGP EVPN solution. Virtual tunnel endpoint is on the card itself. We directly use the top of rack switch as the network underlay. And with that, we have the multi-tenancy and the connectivity directly into the host. So this platform as a foundation to drive your bare metal automation and is highly extensible. You can add it into your existing workflows because of the RESTful API or because you integrate it into your existing controller. It gives you cloud-like management, cloud-like services by providing you VPC functionality, network address translation, but also subnet and so on. All the functionalities that you can consume from the big clouds will be run in your environment on-prem in your own bare metal. So this is, as I said before, these are use cases we're working with customers. So this is not stuff we do in the lab. This is actual requirements from customers. And these are the two ways that we currently work with. There is a third way as well, as Vipin initially said. You can use the card as well to come up with your own services in a P4 programmable fashion. So we have about 3 ways how we can leverage the product and build your own cloud, your own environments according to your needs and according to your special requirements. We do have now some time left for some question and some summarization. I give back to Kevin to lead with the Q&A time.
Thank you, Ralph. I got to take myself off mute there. That might help a little bit. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much, Vipin and Ralph, for going through the technology. You have the ability to submit questions or ask, or if we haven't covered a topic you want to cover, you can put it in the Q&A section of the screen, and we'll tackle as many as we can here today. And then whatever is left, we'll feel free to follow those up. But let me ask just pose a couple of the questions that are up there, and we'll see who can answer those. The first question from Peter was, what are the plans to introduce the technology at our software-defined storage solutions, Datera, Cumulo, Cohesity, and Scality? For those of you who may not know, we have these are what we call complete or pathfinder relationships. And they're very cool companies, next generation software-defined storage. I will tell you that right now, not in the roadmap. Our priorities have been around, I'll tackle that. That's really an HPE question. Priorities have really been about getting all of our platforms qualified. Getting OneView integrated is extremely important. And then making sure that we're addressing what I would call the thicker part of our market. So if you look at our ProLiant series, our Apollo series, that's about 75% of the compute platforms that we sell today worldwide. And so those were really the priority right now. I will tell you, though, that there's a lot of interest in starting to work with these companies, because obviously there's a tremendous opportunity to provide significant performance improvements with pretty much all of these companies. So it's being talked about, it's being considered, but there's not currently anything in the roadmap. Let me Anchor Bola has asked a question. How does it
statement to the full stack solution and our solution in the mentioned product like Skeleton, Cohesity, for example? So something that I didn't cover today that Vipin mentioned before is the increased visibility that our platform brings. So usually these type of solutions, especially to the network engineering team, are kind of a black box when it comes to forwarding and statistics and visibility. And that's where we can help a lot. We gather the statistics, whether they are sit in a regular bare metal server or in a full stack host like a Scality or Cohesity solution, doesn't really matter to us. We can collect the telemetry data and present them to the team for further troubleshooting, inspection, and to actually see what flows are going on within the solution to increase that part of the visibility. Thanks.
Oh, no, thank you, Ralph. I appreciate that. Okay, I'll go back to Anchor Bola's question. How does this integrate with VMware? I'm going to turn that over to Ralph or Vipin.
Yeah, let me take that, Kevin. Thank you. VMware workloads can run perfectly well on top of a bare metal instance. So it could be bring your own hypervisor deployment, the one that Rolf was describing, where if we provide a bare metal service, then VMware could be deployed on top of it quite naturally. Having said that, we can provide most of these services and cloud deployments for virtualized workloads as well. So these virtualized workloads being the VMware workloads. And so we don't expect you to rehash how VMware works. It looks exactly the same. There is no change to the consumption model for VMware users.
Okay, great. Rolf, anything to add on that?
No, I think that's perfectly laid out by Vipin. Thanks.
Okay,
gosh, we've got a lot of good questions.
Yeah, there is a question on, who does the Pensando technology disrupt? Well, we are bringing technology that is used by the best in the cloud to everyone. So in a way, I think, more than disruption, we are trying to see how can we solve the problems for the end users really in the most efficient way and in most programmable way. And in that sense, yes, anyone who is not efficient, we are disrupting them. Anyone who's where the architecture is rigid, we are disrupting them. Maybe if your design is very rigid because of the way you are using various appliances to achieve some of these services that I described, we are definitely disrupting them. Maybe when if you have a solution that is not highly scalable or that is not performing well, we are definitely disrupting them. So that would be my take on who we are really disrupting. Now, are we challenging cloud providers to outdo us? Of course we are, yes. And in that case, we are basically saying, take this and build the cloud to the best of the best.
Great. That's great, Vipin. I appreciate that. There's a couple questions that are kind of the same question, so I'm gonna kind of combine them, and it has to do with the compatibility of the card. Is HP exclusive with the solution? Will it work in Dell? And the other question I think was pretty similar, and that's in the roadmap, the card will be compatible with any other vendors. So look, first, before I turn it over to Vipin or Ralph, I want to give an HP perspective. This product, we will not have exclusivity on this product. What we do have, though, is first mover advantage. And don't belie that. That's extremely important. So we're going to be, let me put in perspective, we're going to be the first partner. It will work in anything. If you put this card in a Dell server, it will not burn down, will not catch on fire. But we'll be the first company to certify it across our platforms. We'll be the first company to integrate it into some of our management tools. We will be the only OEM that will be providing level 1 and level 2 tech support. We've got a deep and integrated roadmap over time. And if you look at some of the other vendors, other than Lenovo, that might integrate this, it tends to compete with some of the products they have. So I personally don't see them grabbing onto the product aggressively. With all that said, it actually helps HP with all of our advantages and first mover advantages in relationship if Dell decides to sell it and if Lenovo decides to sell it. The more market compatibility and adoption this card gets, the better we're going to make out as a company. Vipin or Ralph, anything to share on that?
No, I think, Kevin, you summed it up. You summed it up really well. That it's a PCI card, so sure. I mean, you can plug it into any server. Not only it'll not burn, it'll work. The main thing is that how's the support model looking like and all that. So we'll work through that. So yeah, that's the way it is. It should work.
Yeah. So there's a question about, is this solution available for service providers, or does it make sense for other customers? I'll let you guys take that.
Yeah, it is certainly applicable. Service provider segment is highly sensitive to the number of packets that you're processing, whether it's 5G or IoT or anything of that sort. And we fit very nicely into that domain of doing high-speed I/O processing for any of the traffic which is happening on the 5G edge, or maybe mobile edge for that matter. So it makes a lot of sense to offload most of the service provider related functions into devices like this. It goes very well with the virtualization movement that is already happening, and which is good. So if you want to deploy these services on a Kubernetes based dynamic system, or you want to even use virtualized machines or VMs, that's perfectly okay. On those machines, we can offload mostly most of the network functions can be offloaded, or offload is not the right word. We can subsume the entire function in many cases. Like, you don't need to throw a software router or software NATing or software NAT device or software based solution in case of a service provider deployment. So it does benefit. It is highly applicable in that segment as well.
Yep. That's good. And from an HP perspective, I'll tell you that we built the pipeline from pretty much zero to $200 million. And what we see is the customer use cases of improved security posture, telemetry, deep observability are extremely important. Extremely important. Our customers don't have visibility to all their packets and data flows today. They don't necessarily see who's talking to who. And sometimes we assume they do, but they really don't. And the security posture, their Silicon Root of Trust on top of our Silicon Root of Trust makes the HP server platform absolutely hands down the most secure platform in the market. There's nothing that rivals it. So anyway, I thank you, Vipin. Very good answer. I do think there's a question about VDI. Does this make sense for a VDI solution?
Yeah. Anything that requires services at a high speed. VDI is a very latency sensitive application, and I would say that it does make sense wherever latency is quite important, because you having to not only provide better latency, but isolation of users from each other. So for example, if you have 10 VDIs running on a server or VDI applications running on a server, then you don't want one to be affected by the other. And so that not only the latency, but the performance isolation that is needed for VDI is highly applicable. So I would say definitely yes. VDI is also very IO intensive with respect to how much you send and receive. So anywhere where these attributes show up, I would definitely say it's quite applicable there. There is a question on, do you have any examples? So I think we talked about, how service providers are benefiting from Pensando, and there is a follow-up question on, can you share before and after metrics? I would say that, if you are, for example, if you are using 16 cores to achieve, let's say 100 gig of packet processing, or maybe 32 cores to achieve 100 gig of packet processing. And these are not just packet in, packet out. I'm talking about when you are achieving multiple stages of lookups for all these functions to achieve the functions that I was describing earlier, simultaneously turn on at scale, because when you have scale is when your lookups and the hardware lookups can shine out against the software-based solution. So in that sense, let's say, in service provider, if you are using that much, for 30 watts, you are basically getting 100 gig of performance. So that's your before and after comparison. I will let you define the before, because it's very subjective to what services you have turned on and what scale. I've seen people going from 8 cores to 32 cores to process 100 gig, depending on what they turn on. So that's effectively the cost of, it's a lot of cost that you're going to save there. Yeah. And let alone the latency and performance benefit there. Okay. There is a question on, is there feature comparison of PCI cards and services? That would be in the data sheet, I guess. I encourage you to look at the data sheets. But yes, there is comparison available. Do you see technology being used for terminating multiple BGP sessions to the hyperscalers? We have tested up to 1,000 BGP sessions to be simultaneously available on these devices. So definitely yes, we could easily handle that much for the entire cluster. Then there's an HPE question on, is it synergy and composable infrastructure? Maybe Kevin, you want to take that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yeah, synergy is extremely important. I mean, it goes without saying that it's a big priority inside the company. That said, it's still less than 10% of our market mix. So when we decided to working with Pensando to determine what our priorities were going to be for the platforms, ProLiant was absolutely first priority. Is roughly 70% of our server mix. Apollo is becoming increasingly popular just because of the density optimized and the applications it's being used for, which are a good fit for Pensando. So synergy is on the roadmap. Currently, it's scheduled for about mid fiscal year 2021. And we're still trying to determine the best way to address synergy. I mean, we've got a lot of invested in our Virtual Connect modules. So It's probably a MES card, and again, it's something that's a priority for us, but probably not till mid next year.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll take this question on container deployments. It's very near and dear to me. So yes, I think most of the technology that we described can work for containerized workloads. In other words, we can provide all the network services for containerized workloads or pods which are running in Kubernetes ecosystem. And HPE container platform is highly compatible, or not fully compatible, with upstream Kubernetes. So we anticipate this to be fully working with HCP, which is HPE container platform. For that matter, it should work with any upstream Kubernetes distro. And the benefits of why we will be better than standard solutions, which are providing networking and storage for container platform goes, there's a huge list, but at the same time, I would say that, we definitely will speak to performance and the other gains I talked about. There is a security posture that I want to cover here very, very clearly, that ours is going to be the highest or the most secure solution of all, because in case container has a jailbreak and it breaks into the host OS, we will guarantee that the user who broke into the OS layer has zero access to the policy plane. In other words, there's a PCI hardware separation between the host OS and the policy plane. So where you are creating and enforcing all these services. So in other words, we are putting the guard, which is guarding these devices, to be outside as opposed to inside the room, if I were to use that analogy. So it's security posture wise, I think will be much better. Of course, there are hardware benefits to it, and we'll have a paper written on why we think our solution makes better with container deployment.
Great.
How would it be sold? Well, we
so
are
I know
selling
we're
it. Yeah, I think I think there are a few questions left still, but yeah.
Yeah, how will it be sold on the HP go-to-market? I don't know if we've got enough time to tackle the go-to-market. I will just tell you, it's aggressive, it's relevant, and it's working. With regard to how it's going to be sold, it's going to be sold through our normal channels. It's sold indirect primarily. As you guys know, worldwide, our indirect through partners motion is about 70% to 75% of the way we sell product. We sell things directly, but it's sold really the same way as some of the options are sold today. So as you configure a server, it'll be in our quote, the pricing will be in there. So I don't expect anything different with the way it's sold, quoted, and so forth, and fulfilled.
Yeah, there'll be white papers both on Pensando and HPE websites. There's a question on any white paper references, so there will be white papers on our websites. Yeah, I think what's our business model to the market? Well, we hope that some of the benefits we talked about, like offering security or secure services to your customers, or offering bare metal as a service, or offering a more better ensemble of the network and storage services at a highly cost-effective points would be something you can very easily speak to your customers.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much. I think we're at the end of the questions, and anything that we didn't get to today, we will absolutely get in the email follow-up. So I want to mention a couple things. One is thank you, Vipin and Ralph, and our hosts and all of our attendees for attending this event. It's been very great. I've loved the interaction. Just a reminder that you're going to receive a post-event email with a link to the recording if you didn't get everything you needed to today, and details on how to get the book voucher. I've read the book. It's fantastic, about how to build a better cloud. It's really, really a good read. I want to encourage all of the attendees to book a meeting with us. Book some time with us to talk about your environment, your applications, and potential use cases. And again, you can continue to ask questions by clicking on the icon on the widget bar, second from the right on the screen. Thank you guys very much. We want to meet with you and make this thing real. Appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.